Thursday, March 17th, 1836. Never have I considered myself to be one for writing. The art has always eluded me. However, I have decided that it would be best to keep a journal for my own sanity, if anything else. I know not who I am any more, or if this slow dissolution of my mind will continue. My memories already fail me after but a few nights' sleep. I know my name is William George Enfield. I am age 32, born on August 29th of the year 1803. I know that I live at the Enfield estate, inherited from my father after his untimely death on a hunting trip when I was but a young boy. My mother is, and has been, interred in the Oxford House for the mentally deranged, as she contracted an acute case of hysteria after her husband's death. The estate is staffed by 17 servants, and the butler, John Rickard Parrish. John was hired when I was 7 years of age, and maintained the estate until I was 16, and was capable of taking on the management of the estate. I have worked as a realty agent for the past 14 years, in which I have been very successful, and have made myself known as one of the more wealthy in the city, with the responsibilities that are held from being in a position of social import. The events that have led to the keeping of this journal began a fortnight ago, with the death of one of the estate maids. Despite that night being a night in which I had no visitors, and was in fact the night of a heavy storm that kept everyone in the estate firmly ensconced within the safety of the manor, she was found dead outside the next morning by the gardener. The sight of the body left the gardener feeling ill, and John needed to give him the day to recover. She was found with no hands, body soaked to the bones from the storm, and any possible evidence washed away by that same storm. I, of course, immediately sent a message to the constable, who arrived by horse after lunch to investigate. He interrogated myself and all the house staff on what we were doing the previous night. I, of course, had been spending the night as I do most nights, in my study with a glass of Scotch whisky and a book. I truly believed I would be interrogated more thoroughly. However, by the end of his investigation, the constable simply told me that there was no case to be had here, and that he would be sending someone to collect the body to be taken to the cemetery by the end of the day. The body was removed from the estate promptly, and the happenings continued. Disconcertingly, I have been having lapses in memory since then, entire hours missing, and I have been hearing sounds intermittently. The sounds are not anything that would be concerning on their own, however they always came shortly before one of those lapses. The sounds of wolves and crows, despite having seen neither animal on the property, as well as the sounds of scratching and gnashing from empty rooms. John has reassured me that these rooms are empty, however neither him nor any of the other staff notice any of these noises, and during my lapses they state that I act completely normal, if a bit distracted. I fear that this memory loss, these feelings of floating in thick porridge, are becoming more frequent, and so we arrive to today, as I sit in the study with a glass of Scotch, writing this. Friday, March 18th, 1836. I had another lapse today. I was looking at old family photos. Father insisted on getting a photograph done each August around my birthday to document the family, and heard what I thought to be Mother's voice coming from the empty dining room next to me. It was around 1 o'clock in the evening, not at all the time for anyone to be present in the room. I went in to investigate the sound, as the muffled voice sounded as though it were reprimanding one of the house servants. But upon the investigation I could not find any sign of life. As I felt the frustration from the situation rise, I felt my mind slip, ever so slightly, By the time I regained my memory, the dining room was thoroughly ransacked, as though I had been searching for something. I had also apparently thrown a portrait of my father in the fireplace. As it had been a particularly warm day, the fire had of course not been lit. However, the painting was quite thoroughly covered in soot. I went to seek out John, and upon finding him, he sent some of the servants to recover the state of the room, in time for supper, and sent me to the study to relax. John has always cared for me, ever since father was killed. He did not reveal to me the circumstances of the accident, and I still do not know what happened exactly on that trip. I do not hold the withholding of the death from me against John. However, I do remember having nightmares about the death for many years, which only got worse after mother was sent away. Each a different way that a child's imagination, flush with ideas from leading novels that I perhaps should not have read at that age, could come up with for what had happened on that hunting trip. It was anything from stray bullets or violent animals, to the earth opening up like a mouth to swallow him, to an unimaginable being hunting him as though he were the animal. There was nothing recovered from my father. However, later, John told me that when my father's body was recovered, animals had eaten from his hands, leaving little more than bone, with the rest of the body intact. I wonder if these cases are related. I grow more concerned about these episodes, this being the first time that I have seemingly done anything like this during one. I am writing this while it is fresh in my mind, because I feel as though the memories surrounding this lapse and the event itself are fading. Friday, March 18th, 1836. I do not remember writing that entry in the journal. In fact, I do not remember these nightmares that I wrote about. I only remember struggling to sleep after his father's death. His body was never recovered, so I do not know how I could have memories of his hands. I think... One moment. I have conferred with John, and despite my memories saying to the contrary, he does say that my father's hands were supped upon by animals, but not as thoroughly as I had implied. He also states that the entire body had broken down, and that the stress of the events that have plagued the estate must be causing myself strain. He has recommended I take the weekend to rest, and I believe I shall. I shall put away my journal for now. John is pouring me a glass of scotch. Tuesday, March 22nd, 1836. I am certain I wrote more over the weekend. However, it appears that those pages have been torn out. I find this particularly concerning because there was another murder over the weekend. While it was not on the estate, I did have the constable return to interrogate me. I know I had gone out to the city over the weekend, but I do not have memories of what I did. An assumption that this would be the case would be the exact reason why I would have wrote them down. The constable came to talk to me due to the similarities to the murder on the estate, notably the lack of hands, cleanly cut off at the wrist. The body was not discovered until Monday, hidden in a pile of trash in the alley behind the Gentlemen's Club. I insisted to the constable that I have never been to the Gentlemen's Club. Such revelry is not my preferred venue. I much prefer the quiet, and if my prior habits were to continue, I would have visited the bookstores, gotten another bottle of scotch for the week, and visited the courthouse on Monday to collect the records on repossessed properties to invest in. At the end of the interrogation, the constable gave me the kind of knowing look I'd expect from a pair of people who shared in some conspiracy, and told me, "William, I understand how tedious such a structured life may be for someone like you. If you were to change your habits and visit the Gentlemen's Club, have a bit much to drink, spend a bit too much time with one of the ladies who work there, I would not judge you," and then simply asked me about if I would be coming to the fundraiser dinner to build infrastructure for this new telegraph technology that is being worked on, which would allow one to contact the constabulary within minutes. I feel as though we shared a moment that I do not completely understand. I think I would like to have a glass of scotch and read a book. Wednesday, March 23rd, 1836. I had to interrupt my work today to head into Oxford for new books, because when I went to read after writing yesterday, I found that I hadn't purchased a new book for reading. When I asked the bookstore owner, he said that this had been the first week in recent memory that he hadn't seen me coming in to pick up a new book to read. I have been ruminating on this all day, unsure of the implications. There's a small piece of me that is saying that perhaps I did go to the gentleman's club on the weekend. However, that cannot be true. I have never been to one before. John recommended that I go in tonight to ask if I had gone, and while I find this idea to be redundant, I think I may just for the security. I had never seen even one murder in my life, and having two so close to one another is frightening me. Thursday, March 24th, 1836. I am shaking as I write this. On John's recommendation, I went into the gentleman's club to ask around, and when I arrived I found that not only had I visited last Saturday, but I had hired the exact same girl that had turned up murdered. Like I did with the constable, I had another knowing moment that it seemed I was not a part of, as the manager I spoke to told me not to worry because, quote, having a client such as yourself is far more valuable than one girl, and to please don't allow this happening to think you are not welcome back. If I was not certain that I would be completely incapable of anything like this, I would start to think that they believed I had done it, and that this perceived serial killer behavior is simply not something they care to correct or pursue consequences for. I think tonight I will give myself a larger pour of scotch than my regular glass on the rocks. As much as I am a man of habit, I think this may be an opportunity where it best break that habit. Friday, April 22nd, 1836. I do not know where any of the previous pages went. They have been torn out, and my memory has only been getting worse. I cannot remember the past month. There have been 3 more murders, and I am very certain at this point that most everyone believes I am responsible, and none of them care. On my schedule, I have an open house for a home that I am selling on Monday, and I do not remember setting it. It has not been cancelled, despite the belief that I have fallen into the bizarre pastime of serial murder. I would say I do not wish to ruin my habits and just leave things be. However, my life has already become something completely different against my will. I have the feeling that if I find the real killer, then this may finally stop. The sounds that I have been hearing have become constant, and much louder. Despite the volume and that they are much more often voices, I can never understand what is being said. If I fall to insanity, like Mother before me, I just hope that this journal possibly clears my name while I am treated. Saturday, April 23rd, 1836. I began my investigation today by looking at the facts, pieced together from both previous entries in my journal, or at least what hasn't been torn out, as well as short interviews of the manager of the gentleman club, the constable, and John. From these, I have been able to determine the following facts of this killing spree. 1. The victims are always missing their hands, which have yet to be found. This may be a calling card of some kind, or whoever is performing these murders may have a perverse desire to collect hands, as though inspired by some art piece or sexual deviance. Perhaps both. It may also be a coincidence, like John suggested. However, I do not believe that would be the case. 2, possibly even 3 murders I would think could be a coincidence. However, there have been 5 now, over the course of about 2 months. 2, the murders are always of a servant or low class. The maid, a call girl, a homeless gentleman, an orphan boy, and an elderly cripple that had his home repossessed due to failure to pay his taxes. All of them undesirables. I believe this may be part of the reason the constable is not looking into the murders more. The assumption that I am the killer may also come from the same place, though I do not believe I have ever held hate in my heart for the lower classes. 3. All of the victims are people who I have interacted with in some way. The maid was one of my servants. I had apparently hired the call girl the night of the murder. The homeless gentleman had begged me for money or work, which I had refused him. The orphan boy had been in the bookstore while I was there, throwing a fit. The boy, not myself. And the elderly man, I had apparently purchased his home after it had been repossessed, and he had been harassing me most of the days, throwing small stones. This apparently showed infinite patience in these unruly vermin, the constable's words, not mine, and that I did not simply beat the man to death with my cane where he stood. His home is apparently the one that I am holding the open house for on Monday. 4. These murders have always happened at night or during a heavy storm that would obscure the vision of the victim and any potential witnesses. This has made investigation nearly impossible for the constable, because any possible witnesses have not had clear testimony. 5. The murders have always had something to wash away the evidence. Either a storm, the body found in some filthy and cluttered place, or, in the case of the orphan boy, his body was found in the stream. 6. There has never been a clear sign of death, often with the blood completely washed away. The only injury that anyone has found has been the missing hand. There has been potentially other wounds, however those could always be reasonably explained by circumstances of where the body was found, such as puncture wounds on the girl in the alley. It is possible the act of cutting off the hands has been the method, however there were limited signs of struggle. 7. Nobody but me cares about finding the killer. In most cases, because they believe I'm the one who did it. So, no need to investigate. I'm not sure this is evidence in this investigation, however, it doesn't settle me. The same as how I was always in one of those episodes during when it happened. I cannot even be a witness to what I myself have seen due to them. I am unsure where to take my investigation from here. Truly, I am no detective, and my only experience here is in the reading of novels of mystery and investigation. However, I do need to try, for my own sanity. Sunday, April 24th, 1836. No progress on the investigation. I had a lapse in the middle of Mass, though, and apparently had a seizure during the communion. I came to the doctor's office, and after getting a blood transfusion, I was sent home with a small bottle of cannabis tincture, and told to take half a teaspoon every night for 2 weeks, and return. While I am a man of logic and reason, I am horrified to hear that such a lapse in event may happen at Mass. I will have to return to the church tomorrow to speak to the bishop. I may have some mild demonic possession. It would explain the lapses and my strange behaviors during them. For now, I am going to have a glass of scotch and attempt to rest. Despite my best attempts, I have found myself going through 2 bottles a week instead of 1, and have started to get the shakes before I head to the study in the evening. Tuesday, April 26th, 1836. I was far too busy to write in the journal yesterday, between the bishop performing an exorcism and the open house. Despite my best efforts, most of the day was also a lapse. I was apparently drinking scotch during the open house, and have gone through my entire bottle. I feel as though I cannot pen this entry without my usual glass to drink while I write, and even now I am struggling. Either these lapses are not demonic in nature, or whatever demon possesses me is far more powerful than the bishop can excise. I'm going to take my nightly medicine and get some sleep. I will take tomorrow out of the office to recover. I believe attempting to investigate and get to the bottom of these serial murders, work, and these lapses have started to put an excessive strain on me. April 27th, 1836. I believe I am lapsing. I feel not myself, and am struggling to write, as though I am fighting something off, not in a literal way. Any demonic possession would have surely been excised already. More so, I feel like I am fighting off exhaustion. Yes, that is how that word is spelled. I am taking some time off for the investigation. The sale on Monday handled things quite well. I believe I will have John hold my journal while I am struggling to avoid having more pages ripped out. But I need to rip it out. This needs to be... March 1st, 1836. How dare he keep my journal from me? I need to tear out the evidence. Nobody can know how I've been. I don't know what day it is. It's most likely still 1836. I don't particularly care. The whole day was a lapse, maybe longer. I came out of it above John's body. There are no hands. Someone has written in my journal, and I do not know whom. The writing claims to be me, but I don't remember any of it, and it is not my handwriting. John had my journal. Most of the pages were torn out and burned, but the fire wasn't able to get it all this time. There is no blood, and there is water everywhere, which must be how those scraps of pages survived. It was the middle of the day. This ruined swaths of what I was thinking may have been happening. I do not know if this is demonic or some other supernatural creature, if I am being drugged, if I'm the one who's doing it. Perhaps I have truly gone mad. I feel as though I'm being punished. Despite my doubts, I am unsure how I could have done this murder, and the staff says I was shouting as though I was fighting something off, but the doors had been barred or locked. There is no weapon I could have used. My body does not feel the pains of a fight, and I am unsure how John's hands were removed. I do not have tools in the dining room. Tuesday, March 3rd, 1836. After recovering from yesterday's, at least I assume yesterday, these journal entries have become my only tether to the passage of time. Yesterday's events, I managed to work out the day. I had a week-long lapse. John is dead. He nearly raised me after Father died. After writing yesterday, I was able to use the new telegram to get a hold of the constable. It had been early in the morning, and without having to send a letter, he was able to get here before lunch. He asked me about what happened, and throughout the interview I got the feeling that he does believe that I committed this murder. Most foul. However, he was at least kind enough to not directly accuse me, as he has implied before. I am unsure what to do next in the investigation. I am going to take my medicine, have a glass of scotch, and sleep. I do not know what is happening, and I am ashamed to admit that I have allowed myself the most unmanly bout of sobbing when the door to the estate was shut and separated me from the rest of the world. Thursday, March 5th, 1836. I went to visit Mother today, mostly out of desperation. I have gone mad, and so perhaps, I had thought, it was the words of a madwoman who would be the lead I required. It was poor help. Mother was constantly sedated. Apparently she had come into the asylum lethargic and emotional and required medication. However, that medication would send her into throes of mania, and she would then require a second medication to calm her. She is apparently on 5 different medications now. She was almost catatonic through most of my visit, occasionally letting out screams or thrashing violently for seemingly no reason. Whenever I tried to get a straight answer from her about something, the best I would get would be her talking to me like I was still a little boy asking about Father. Oh, your father got into an accident hunting, and don't worry, John will take care of you, and don't ask too many questions. It will be okay. Worthless platitudes were about the only thing I could get from her. The best I got was, the casket is closed because your father's hands were injured, and we wouldn't want to scare you. These issues with the damned hands have driven me to a madness of my own. This is the only pattern I have noticed besides my close connection to the case. This investigation has moved from feeling akin to a detective novel to one of horror. Every attempt to find evidence either leaves me feeling as though I know even less than I did when I started, or simply makes me uncomfortable. I am unsure how to proceed. I will be seeing the doctor about increasing the dose of my medication and staying on it longer. I don't know why that doctor told me to only take half a teaspoon of the medicine. I'm far happier having taken a full teaspoon with my scotch this evening. I finally feel as though the lapses are going to fade, and as though whatever forces are in me are not fighting against me. I do not know what is happening. I did not go to work today. Oh, it is Friday, the 6th, 1836. Obviously, what other year would it be? I have made some attempts toward the investigation. However, the investigation is at a wall. There is simply no other evidence I can find. I'm out of scotch. I'll have to get more tomorrow. Perhaps lock myself in the estate. Friday, March 13th, 1836. Today is a most unlucky day. I am missing more pages of the journal. I was able to find a scrap in the fireplace with the strange handwriting I seemed to write in during a lapse, but the scrap simply says Scotch and my medication, which tells me nothing. Know that I did not spend a full week in lapses, but the lapses are incredibly frequent. I have taken to writing in my journal before taking my medication, because I find I'm quite intolerable after I take it now. But it is the only thing that has helped my pains. I also have noticed a decline in my writing quality, while under the effects of my medication. This is not just an unlucky day due to being a witch's day, but because of the realization I came to. I will never solve this case without knowing the self that comes out during a lapse. Tonight there is a storm, the perfect chance. I will lock myself in my room, light up the candles, and wait. My hope is that a mirror may capture my soul, such that I may speak to myself and interrogate my own self. I am the only witness I have not been able to question at all. My only hope is that this works. If it does not, well, I suppose if it does not, then there will be no more entries in my journal. Will there be? 1843. Humans are so very malleable. It was so easy to convince the doctors of one Oxford house for the mentally deranged that everything had been fixed and healed. I just had to give them my opinion. William is a fine host. The lapses he has gives me such a perfect opening to come back. I cannot feel my hands still. Eventually one pair will fail.